Darkness enveloped everything. The Persian Gulf stretched out, a black mirror beneath a starless, moonless sky. On the deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, only the low hum of the reactors and the quiet footsteps of the night watch broke the silence. The time was 4:03 in the morning, June 27, 2025. Nearly all 5,000 crew members aboard the carrier were lost in deep sleep. The air hung thick with salt and the leftover heat of the previous day. Then, without warning, the peace was shattered. A shrill alarm ripped through the corridors. Danger was imminent. Lights snapped on, throwing sharp shadows across the cramped bunks and steel walls. Young sailors, many barely adults, were jolted awake and thrown from their racks. The Truman was under attack. In the Combat Information Center, a young radar tech was the first to spot them, dozens of hostile contacts racing across the water at supersonic speed. Missile launch! Multiple inbound targets, bearing 090. The radar blips were enemy missiles, all locked onto the Truman. The crew had drilled for this scenario countless times. Now, it was happening for real. Sleep was no longer an option. Survival was now their only focus. The digital tracks on the screen weren't part of an exercise. They were real weapons, aimed to destroy this billion-dollar warship. The countdown had begun, with only seconds left before the first missile would strike. General quarters! All hands, man your battle stations! The ship instantly transformed. Sailors, pulling on flame-retardant coveralls and helmets as they ran, moved with purpose. Their training took over, a powerful antidote to fear. Each sailor knew their destination, their specific role in the ship's defense. Down in the mess decks, breakfast preparations were abandoned. Cooks became firefighters. In the engine rooms, engineers sealed watertight doors, isolating sections of the ship. On the flight deck, crews scrambled to secure aircraft, lashing them down with heavy chains. Every action was precise, economical, and fast. The ship was a living organism, every sailor a vital cell working to keep it alive. The clang of steel-toed boots, the hiss of hydraulics, the thud of hatches, battle music. The radar beeped, tracking the incoming threats. Faces were tense, focused, but determined. They were a team, a family, and their home was under attack. The ship itself came alive, defensive systems humming with power. Ammunition hoists fed shells to the guns, missile launchers rotated into position. The USS Truman had shed its peacetime skin. It was now a warship, bristling with technology and resolve. The transition took less than 3 minutes, from slumber to total war. The crew was ready. The first missile was a near miss, screaming over the flight deck and exploding in the water just off the port side. The shockwave hit the Truman, a violent shudder that threw people against bulkheads. The ship listed hard before righting itself, a brutal, terrifying introduction to the attack. The near miss was followed by a direct hit. A missile slammed into the aft section, near the fantail. A fireball erupted, black smoke pouring from the wound. On the bridge, Captain Eva Rostova gripped the railing, watching damage reports flood in. Damage Control Team 3, report, fire on the fantail. Section 7 is compromised. The ship had been hurt. The invincibility of the supercarrier felt for a moment like a myth. The chaos intensified. More explosions rocked the sea as the ship's defenses engaged the swarm. "We have casualties," a voice crackled over the radio. Medical teams rushed toward the impact zone. The fight was now on two fronts, against the missiles in the sky and the fires and injuries within. The crew was being tested in the most extreme way imaginable. The battle for survival had truly begun. With the attack now a brutal reality, the Truman's defenses unleashed their full power. Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles rocketed into the sky, intercepting threats at range. Rolling airframe missiles launched next, agile and precise, targeting any leakers. The air became a maelstrom of explosions, a deadly fireworks display. The final line, Phalanx CIWS, the ship's robotic Gatling guns, locked on and shredded incoming missiles with torrents of tungsten rounds. The sound was a metallic roar, tracer rounds forming beams of light. In the Combat Information Center, sailors coordinated the defense, tracking targets and making split-second decisions. Human skill and machine speed fused into a formidable steel wall. The crew trusted their technology and each other. Together, they formed a shield of defiance against the storm. On the bridge, Captain Eva Rostova was the calm at the center of the storm. Her presence steadied everyone around her. She moved between navigation and tactical displays, absorbing a torrent of information. "Helm, I want a new course. Come right to 350. Let's change our profile." The helmsman responded instantly. The massive ship began a slow, deliberate turn. It was a calculated risk, a chess move at 1,000 miles per hour. Captain Rostova's communication with the CIC was constant. CIC, bridge, update on inbound threat count. Bridge, CIC. We've neutralized 12. Tracking 10 more, possible second wave. 10 more. Each one a potential death blow. Acknowledge CIC. Prioritize the closest threats. Keep the CIWS hot, and get me the Admiral. The decision to retaliate was coming. Her leadership was more than giving orders. It was projecting confidence when fear was thick in the air. She made eye contact with her officers, nodded encouragement to the young sailor at the helm. She trusted her crew, and they trusted her. In that command center, her composure was the ship's most important psychological defense. She was the captain. She would not falter. And because she would not, the crew would not either. The ship's spirit, like its captain, would not be broken. The order came down: retaliate. The USS Truman was about to transform from defender to attacker. On the flight deck, chaos shifted to controlled fury. Catapult crews launched 2 FA-18 Super Hornets, armed and ready. The roar of jet engines was a promise of vengeance. "Launch the birds!" Captain Rostova commanded. The first Super Hornet was hurled into the sky, followed by its partner. They climbed, banking hard toward their target coordinates. The enemy's location had been pinpointed. Deep within the Truman, Tomahawk cruise missiles were readied and launched. With thunderous force, they streaked toward the coastal batteries and command centers that had dared to attack. The Truman was unleashing its own storm, a precisely targeted wave of destruction. The world was about to witness the full power of an American carrier strike group. As the last enemy missiles were destroyed and the Truman's retaliation was underway, a new phase began inside the ship. Damage control teams fought fires, patching wounds and preventing further damage. The medical bays were overwhelmed: burns, shrapnel wounds, broken bones. Every sailor not essential to operations became a stretcher bearer or medical assistant. The emotional toll was immense. Shock and grief replaced adrenaline. A young sailor sat on the passageway floor, head in hands, shaking. Another stared blankly, the roar of the near miss echoing in her mind. These were the invisible wounds of combat. The crew moved about their duties, clearing debris, tending to the wounded, and preparing for what might come next. They had faced death together and survived. Now they were changed forever. As the first rays of sun broke over the horizon, they illuminated devastation and defiance. The USS Truman bore the scars of battle, but it was still afloat, its flag still flying. The world awoke to shocking news: reports of the attack and the overwhelming American response. Global markets trembled, diplomats scrambled. The message was clear: an attack on U.S. forces would be met with overwhelming force. For the crew, the new dawn brought grim satisfaction and profound loss. They had defended their ship, honored their fallen, and stood together on the flight deck for a memorial. They were survivors, bound by a shared experience no outsider could understand. The Truman would return to port for repairs, its sailors hailed as heroes. But the events of that dark morning would leave a permanent mark. Peace is fragile, maintained by steel and courage. The missile storm was over, but its shockwaves would ripple across the globe. The world had been reminded of what American resolve looked like.